You're right. It's just gone from bad to worse. Welcome in here. It's the college basketball tip-off show powered by WagerTalk.com. We got 52 college basketball games on the board. Plenty already underway. And in fact, we've got a couple of games that have already finished there in the MAC tournament as Penn State gets it done earlier today. I believe St. Joe's comes back and gets it done as well a little bit earlier. So we've got UConn underway right now. We've got BYU getting absolutely destroyed. So as you can see, a little something for everyone here today among these 52 games. We are going to pick out a few of these games for you, break them down, see if there are any angles that these three guys like here. And you've got three of the best at Wager Talk. As Bryan Power back in action, there is no keeping him away. Not even the microphone. Not keeping him away. And Lord knows we have tried. Double R1L, Steve Merrill in the house. And the pen, Ralph Michaels, ready to roll here. Gentlemen, welcome in. The madness is off and running on this Thursday, March 14th. So, let's kick it off here, BP, with a little big game breakdown. Let's head out to the Mountain West if we could. New Mexico dismantling Air Force last night. Wasn't even close. But now they're going to have a little bit of a tougher opponent, I believe, in Boise State. Pick them, -1 maybe, somewhere in that ballpark. Break it down for us. What are we looking at tonight?
Yeah, people have a lot of time, pardon me, to wait for tip-off on this one. You talked about the early game show. This is a late-night tip, 4th of 4 quarterfinals in the Mountain West tournament today. And I want to start with the fact I have New Mexico rated as the better team, as does Ken Palm. Now, the Lobos, we all know about the rough finish to the regular season. They lost at home to Air Force, which they, as you mentioned, avenged last night in a major way, 82-56. Got swept by UNLV down the stretch. And they also lost to the team they'll face here in the quarterfinals, Boise State. In fact, Boise won both regular season meetings, but they did so with the kind of shooting that you can't count on being replicated. First meeting, Max Rice goes berserk from 3, 7 of 14. Second time around, Broncos put up 1.24 points per possession at home, well above their season average. Meanwhile, in those same two games, guys, New Mexico, they had their way offensively as well. 78.5 points they averaged. And that was despite going 13 for 48 from 3. Imagine if they were knocking down those three-pointers, what they would have done at the offensive end against Boise. Better three-point shooting tonight, combined with pushing the pace. That's the keys for the Lobos, Joe. They are 5th nationally in adjusted tempo. Jamal Mashburn Jr. did play last night. I think that's big. I don't know if it makes him better. It might actually make him worse defensively, but he's obviously another key scoring option. Bottom line is this. New Mexico, we know they have to win to have any chance at securing an at-large bid for the NCAA tournament. I'm going to take them on the money line, given how this one is priced currently. One more note, if you're looking at playing the total, Boise, a perfect 10-0 to the over last 3 seasons when playing on 5 or 6 days rest. But I think I like the side better in this one, Joe. New Mexico to advance.
This is where? Out in Vegas, right? Isn't it T-Mobile, I believe, in the Mountain West tournament there? All right, so a little late night action coming your way in the Mountain West. I think it's going to be a good one there. We do have, though, an ACC battle here where I don't know what to make of them, Merrill. NC State here. Kind of felt like they underperformed throughout the season. They'll have a chance to show what they've got here coming up a little bit later against Duke here, which we hate, and we are thoroughly documented with not liking Duke or Kyle Filipowski after he got run over by a couple of sorority girls. What are you thinking about this matchup here coming up with North Carolina State taking on Duke?
This is very well maybe the best day in all of handicapping because you'll never have more elimination games. Over 50 college basketball games this Thursday, and they're all elimination games. So every game matters. It's really a fantastic time to be handicapping. I've got 4 strong college basketball best bets for tonight on Thursday at WagerTalk.com, Steve Merrill. But I wanted to look at a little bonus play here in the NC State Duke game at 7 o'clock Eastern tonight on Thursday. And on the surface, you would think it's a focus spot for Duke. They were one of the hottest teams in the country. In fact, they were on an 8-1 straight up an ATS run before that North Carolina loss last Saturday. And hey, full disclaimer, I got that one wrong. I had a best bet on Duke. We've had a fantastic season. In fact, in the history of WagerTalk.com, nobody has won more on college and pro basketball sides combined. But one of those rare misses was last Saturday. Home revenge spot, final home game. I thought they could slow Carolina down. They weren't able to. It's the second time this year they lost to North Carolina. It was the second time the game went over as well. Duke plays much slower now that Coach K is gone. And instead of looking at the side here, you would think it's a bounce back spot for Duke, but laying 11 points is a lot because when these teams played earlier this season, it was just about 10 days ago. In fact, exactly 10 days ago on March 4th, NC State lost by 15 at home as a 6.5-point dog, but it was a little misleading. Duke was plus 18 from 3-point range and only won by 13. So that's another reason I'm a little hesitant to lay the big number here. So let's look at the total instead. There's been some sharp money coming in on the under. It opened as high as 149.5. It's now down to 146 across the board. And I do agree with that move to the under. Duke off the loss will be fully focused, as I mentioned. I think that'll show more on the defensive side, especially since they just allowed North Carolina to score 84 points and shoot 50% from the field. You know, the only time they lost during that 8-1 run I mentioned beforehand was against Wake Forest back at the end of February. They gave up 83 points and 60% shooting, by far their worst, at least field goal defensive performance of the season. What did they do against Louisville the next game? They held them to 59 points and 41% shooting, and it stayed under the total by over double digits. Let's go back to that earlier North Carolina loss on February 3rd. Carolina scored 93 points, shot 50% from the field. Next game against Notre Dame, Duke held them to just 53 points and 34% shooting, and it stayed under by 10 points as well. So, although I think it is a good bounce back spot for Duke, I'm a little hesitant to lay the 11 as North Carolina State played them pretty tight 10 days ago, but I think the under is the play here. Take a look at Duke, NC State, under the total, under 146. That tips off tonight at 7 Eastern on Thursday. And don't forget, I have 4 strong college basketball best bets. One of them is the $5 Customer Appreciation Thursday play. So don't miss it. Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com.
Well, don't feel bad, Duke fans. North Carolina just smoked Florida State by 25. So you weren't the only one who got ran over by North Carolina this year. But that should be an interesting game here tonight. Learn a little something about both those teams in the ACC. As we head out to the Big 12 with the pen here, Ralph Michaels ready to roll here as the madness is off and running. And Ralph, let me ask you, is this game at Iowa State? Because if it's not, good Lord, are we laying the points here with Iowa State?
We are, Joe. I do want to mention 2 things before I get to that game. Number one, the Mountain West tournament is in Las Vegas, but it's actually at the UNLV campus, Thomas Mack. The Pac-12's over at T-Mobile. So yes, in Vegas. And we were talking before we came on the air to our viewers, talking about UConn's comeback. So Steve, Brian, and Joe, I have this question for you. 2012, there have been 40 teams in conference tournaments that have been a favorite of minus 13 or more. And at the half, they either trailed, were tied, led by 1, or led by 2. So their margin at the half was 2 points or less. They won the game, and they were a favorite of 13 or more. 40 times prior to UConn. How many teams do you think covered in that role?
Every one of
UConn
them.
is the first.
None. Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Teams prior to UConn today are 0, 38, and 2 against the spread. UConn actually won today and covered. Ended up, they were up by 2. They ended up winning by 20 plus. So a rare occurrence indeed. All right, guys, breaking down the Iowa State game. Joe, completely agree with
do you have how many lost outright in that role?
Yeah. How many lost outright?
How many of those teams lost outright? Do you know? Or you can tell us later.
I just got to change the database to a loss. Yep. 12 have lost outright.
Wow.
So most still won but didn't cover.
Yeah, they come back.
But did not cover. But they were double digits over 13, they were laying 13
30
pre-flop.
sometime, 39 times. You'd think it would have happened. That's crazy.
And, prior to here, Eastern Washington lost. Eastern Washington ended up losing by 5 to
Mm-hmm.
Sacramento State just on March 10th. Prior to that,
Yep.
it hadn't happened since no teams lost since 2019. Texas Tech lost to West Virginia
Wow.
March 14th, 2019. All right, enough of that. Let's get to it. Joe, you had talked about Iowa State being at home. We understand there's a huge home road dichotomy, but I think the neutral setting negates some of that. Iowa State on the road, not quite the same offense, but I think in this neutral game, I think they are. You look at Kansas State. You know, Kansas State went through a stretch where they beat Kansas and they beat BYU and they beat West Virginia. That was their only win in a 12-game stretch. They did beat this Iowa State team in the regular season finale, opened the Big 12 tournament last night against Texas. Well, what happened? They were down by 10 points at halftime against the Longhorns. They had 8 turnovers in the first half. They only had 2 turnovers in the second half. So they played the game at 7 o'clock last night. They got done playing at 9:30. Now, 22 hours later, they have to play the number 2 defense in the country in Iowa State, a team that is number 2 in defensive turnovers. This Kansas State team will turn the ball over and significantly. And with them having to play comeback ball in the second half, we saw 3 of the starters play 36 minutes or more. So I look at that situation. Again, Iowa State 5-1 against the spread with more rest this season, which helps the pressure team against the non-pressure team. Their only non-cover was when they were a 17.5-point favorite against West Virginia, and they pulled the scrubs off the bench late. When they're playing a strong offensive team with a total of 140 or higher, and a lot of times that's been on the road, the Cyclones only 4-6 against the spread. But as a favorite of 3 or more with a total under 140, they're 13-1 straight up, 12-2 ATS. You don't want to blindly say, well, you're playing this team with no rest that had to come back in the second half. But against this opponent, I think it sets up as the perfect matchup for the Cyclones. Now, full disclosure, I like this a lot more at -6 and 6.5 this morning. It has climbed to 7.5. I even see some 8s, but I still do lean the Cyclones.
I just wonder how much left in the tank Kansas State has got. I mean, how many more games can they take right to the wire and then eventually pull away? It's kind of absolutely crazy what Coach Jerome Tang has done there with K-State here. I would not want to play them in overtime because they have proven they are absolutely deadly in a close game in the second half or overtime. But Iowa State's got an opportunity to get it done here tonight here against K-State in the Big 12. Well, there you got it. We got 3 big game breakdowns for you. We've got 3 best bets coming up here on a loaded slate of college basketball's conference tournament week is off and running. By the way, if you're joining us here live on this Thursday for the first time, we invite you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button, become part of the Wager Talk TV family, because if it is big game previews and best bets and angles you're looking for, nobody's got more content than we do here at Wager Talk TV. So become part of that family. Hit the subscribe button. And those joining us live, you know the routine. Hit that thumbs up. We certainly appreciate the support as we get ready for best bet number 1. Back to the top with the man from Rome, I think. Brian Power. I don't know if that's the Coliseum behind you or what the hell that is, but it's better than the dead plant that was there last week. So let us talk here. You went deep here tonight with us here. This is probably going to be the most bet game of the night by far when Southern takes on Bethune-Cookman, and I can't think of anybody more capable of breaking this down for us than you, BP. Give us the best bet tonight.
Yeah, well, just a couple quick things before we get to the breakdown, Joe. You want to talk about angles? You mentioned Kansas State and the overtime record. I believe they're either 11-0 or 12-0 under Tang in overtime games. At one point, that was 20% of their wins under Tang had actually come in overtime games. Just ridiculous close game variance there. You talked about content, Joe. If you want more free content, I did a standalone video previewing Cincinnati and Baylor tonight. I'm on the record saying I think Baylor's going to win the Big 12 tournament. Do they cover the number? If you want to find out, check out elsewhere here on Wager Talk TV. I also did a preview of the MAC tournament with Adam Trigger, which is off and running just 20 minutes away from me in downtown Cleveland. But we're going to talk about a game here and don't forget about code POWER3, by the way, which gets you $20 off a 3-day all-access pass. My $5 play is up as well. It's in the NBA. But let's talk about a game that's much further than 20 minutes away from me. It is in the SWAC, Bethune-Cookman and Southern. It was a month ago, Joe, that Southern was on a 7-game win streak and seemed poised to finish first in the conference, but they did not play well down the stretch, lost 4 of 6, and they finished as the 4 seed coming into the conference tournament. But this is a double revenge spot. We've been harping on those all week. And Ralph shared a chart earlier in the week. It's a chart people need to check out. When the favorite has double revenge in conference tournaments, they've won 67% of the time straight up. You look at the 2 Southern Bethune-Cookman matchups in the regular season, Southern led at the half both times. What happened in those games? How did they lose? Bethune-Cookman lived at the free throw line. 58 of 72 in the 2 games. They had 36 free throw attempts in both games. Toledo could have used some of that free throw shooting about 2 hours ago, but they're out, and we'll see. I don't think Bethune-Cookman's getting to the line 36 times here in a conference tournament, and I think the third time is going to be the charm for Southern. They have the top defensive rating in the SWAC. You look through Bethune-Cookman's profile, I think they were lucky to finish over 500. They only had 3 wins in conference play, guys, by more than 6 points. The market has jumped on Southern. This number opened 2.5. You see where it's at right now on your screen. I will jump on Southern as well. The Jaguars are today's best bet. Shout out to our outstanding producer, Robert, who I know enjoyed this SWAC content more than anybody.
Well, I don't know about that. Mostly because he sucked me up into taking TSU for the tournament yesterday. But that's a whole other thing. Shout out Texas Southern, looking to get it done this afternoon too, as well. All right, we appreciate it, BP. And it looks like Bill in the chat room also a big proponent of Southern. So he is certainly backing you up on that one. Did you have anything else to add? I just want to know, because you had a lot to add yesterday in the NBA tip-off show. You good?
No, that was actually on the. I know it's confusing, Joe, when I'm on every show, but no, I learned my lesson yesterday. I will only speak when called on from now on. I'm done speaking out of turn.
That is outstanding. We appreciate that. Really, we do. Double R1L, Steve Merrill. Unbelievable here. Merrill, we got a lot of folks in the chat room here. Titan CT up in the house here. A lot of the folks interested in that North Carolina State Duke game here. But you're going to kind of stay in the ACC for your best bet here. And I'll be interested to see what you think of these 2 teams going head-to-head with Virginia and Boston College. So tell the folks what you got rolling here today and break down that best bet for us.
This is the best day in college basketball. The NCAA tournament is great, but Thursday and even Friday, you get more elimination games than any sport. I mean, we have over 50 college games, and everyone's an elimination game. We have some strong games tonight. Going to have a free ESPN winner in just a moment, but I want to let everybody know I do have 4 official best bets, all available right now at WagerTalk.com, including a late night game, which is the $5 Customer Appreciation Thursday. We're only allowed to do one of them, so I made it the late game so everybody can get it for just $5. But hey, those other 3 plays, a 3-for-1 special for $29, that works out to about $9.50 a play. So it's a great time to get on board with the Thursday best bet card, or consider the rest of college basketball for just $149. That's a month all the way through April 8th. Every college play for the conference tournaments, March Madness, everything for just over $5 a day. If you like the $5 customer appreciation play, why not get everything today for just $5 a day? That's like $1.50 a play. Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. Let's look at the late ESPN game at 9:30 Eastern tonight in the ACC tournament. Virginia, not my Virginia Cavaliers. I saw a UVA fan the other day here in town, and they said, they're definitely in. I was like, I don't know. I think they might be on the bubble. Oh, they're the 3rd seed in the ACC tournament. They could only take 2 teams from the ACC. Well, Joe Lenardi knows as well as everybody, and he's saying this is a win and they're in. So if they don't win tonight, they might not be in. And it's been an up and down season for Tony Bennett and company. Keep in mind, they started just 2-3, won 8 straight, and they had a little bit of a rut here over the past month. In fact, they were on a 0-5 ATS slide, 1-5 ATS slide, but they went 0-5 in all other games during that span from mid-February to early March, except for one. And that's when they went up to Boston on February 28th and won outright and covered. So the only team they covered against during that 6-game span, that slump, was Boston College, and that's because they match up well against them. Virginia has one of the best defenses in the country once again, the slowest tempo of 362 teams. Boston College prefers a little bit more of an up-tempo attack. They've put up 157 points the last two nights against Miami and Clemson. They're also coming off back-to-back straight-up underdog wins, now playing their third game in 3 nights without rest. UVA has been off for 4 days because they're the 3 seed. They got the double bye. So this is a great setup for UVA against a team they match up well, and it's a motivated spot to win, and they're likely in. Lay the 5.5 with UVA at 9:30 Eastern tonight on ESPN. And don't forget my 4 strongest plays for Thursday night college hoops available right now. Steve Merrill, WagerTalk.com. And by the way, click subscribe and click the bell for instant alerts so you never miss these shows and free play videos here. And comment below. I read all the comments. I reply back. Let's win together tonight on Thursday here on Wager Talk TV.
Big shout out to Lemon Cake in the chat room here. We appreciate you hanging. I mean, who doesn't
delicious.
Love a little lemon cake here on a Thursday as the madness is off and running? He also loves USC plus 9.5. So that's an interesting game coming up here in the Pac-12 there a little bit later from now. But we have another best bet coming your way from the pen, Mr. Ralph Michaels. And Ralph, you're when you break this this game down here for a best bet, and it's going to be in the Pac-12, by the way. I'm wondering if the database has seen, because I think Merrill brings up a good point. There is no tomorrow, right? At this point in the season, have we seen a inordinate amount of overs in games? Let's say in the second half, for instance, because teams are just, hey, they got nothing to lose. They're not pulling anybody. They're just chucking it up, and we're getting maybe more points than usual, with teams taking their foot off the gas because they know they have another game the next day?
You know, I was with Rob Vito and Dwayne Bryant yesterday. We were watching games. We were talking about the crazy second half numbers and the first half unders in the tournaments. But I did go to database, Joe, and I can tell you this. There's been 185 conference tournament games so far this postseason. They are actually 85 and 100, 45.9% to the over, so 54.1% to the under. So I agree with that philosophy, but let's also remember that when we get to the conference finals, those have been a 55% play under because you're playing that pressure in the defense. So the philosophy is true, but the data from the entire period does not hold up with those numbers. Again, 85 and 100 going into today's games for the over-under in conference tournaments. I did look up one more thing as well. Kansas State this year has been in 7 overtime games. They're 7-0 straight up. They're 4-3 against the spread. The next 2 closest teams were San Fran and Nicholls State with 5 overtime games each. So K-State far above everyone else. The last 3 years, as Brian mentioned, K-State has been in 14 overtime games. They're 13 and 1. They've won their last 12. The next highest team, there were 5 teams with 11. So if you think they have been in a lot of games, they have. Again, $5 customer appreciation day at Wager Talk and at Sports Memo. Every person has a package loaded. It's a great way to try a few of your favorite handicappers and get some great value. And I am going to look at Oregon minus the points today. You know, UCLA, we know what they've done the last few years, and they've been an impressive team. And while they started this season 14 and 11, you got to remember that they lost 5 straight games before winning the regular season finale and then before winning last night. But I'm not impressed with those last 2 wins. Why? Well, you look at the 2 teams at the bottom of the Pac-12 standings. It happens to be Arizona State, who they beat last Saturday, and Oregon State, who they beat yesterday. So we have a team now that is unrested against a rested foe. I found this a very interesting tweet. You know, you look at Oregon, and Oregon down the stretch was not impressive either. They went 1-4 against the spread. They lost 3 games and only won 2. Their wins against Oregon State and Utah, both at home. But when you went to the paper and read some of Altman's quotes, he said, listen, you know, we lost a few players early in the year, We've had guys banged up. He said, I was actually afraid to schedule practices because the energy level was zapped going into the final week of the regular season. They just didn't even have enough players to practice. So while I am on Oregon this game, keep in mind, they haven't played since last Saturday. If they win today, they are clearly a team that I will look to fade tomorrow, having to play back-to-back games. They are 15-1 straight up as a favorite of -2 and higher, going 11-4, 11-4-1 against the spread. 7 of 8 winners their last 8 games against the spread in that role. And when I look at the 2 regular season games this year, each team won on their home court. And while UCLA did beat them back on February the 3rd, 71-63, Oregon only shot 6 of 22 from 3-point. That's 27%. UCLA shot 50%. This is one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the Pac-12, but they shot 50%, and that's the reason they won. So when I'm looking at those first meetings of the year and I see that type of anomaly, that's where I think we're getting value playing against them here. So this is an actual client release. This is a 3% play on UCLA minus the points. And again, we're on them today, maybe jumping up to play against them tomorrow after they win tonight.
All right, good stuff there. Big shout out to John Finley in the chat room, too. Wants to know, is the total in the Ohio State-Iowa game crazy high? Well, it was, which is why the market has slammed it to the under here. I think at 155 as an open. I'm seeing 152 right about now, and it looks like the money's still coming in on the under there. So that's an interesting thing as well there, because I did think a little 155 might have been a little bit high to begin with as well, but the market seems to be reacting to it here. All right, our friends from the Gold Sheet as well have a best bet here tonight. They are going to head to the Big Ten, and they are going to look to go under with this Penn State taking out Indiana here. And Penn State, Michigan was on the under in that game yesterday, and my goodness, did that prove to be a rocking chair. And it is the Big Ten, and according to our friends at the Gold Sheet here, Penn State shot 48.8% from three-point range in the first 2 meetings between these two teams. Don't think that is going to happen again, not to mention Indiana senior Trey Galloway did end up suffering a knee injury in the final regular season game. That's a big loss there for Indiana. And we saw 123 and 116 points scored at the Target Center, which is another one of those situations, guys, in conference tournaments where the sight lines are different in these neutral site locations. You don't generally get the same kind of high-scoring games that you might consider if they were at, say Assembly Hall. So the under tonight here with this Penn State-Indiana game with our friends from the Gold Sheet. And we'd encourage you to head over to goldsheet.com. Check it out, guys. Great write-ups, great information, great data across all of the college basketball games here today. It is a great, great resource. And to recap once again, for those entirely too lazy here to actually listen to a damn thing any one of these guys have had to say, it is going to be double R1L Virginia. That's right. Steve Merrill, Virginia, -5.5 here, getting it done. BP, Southern, of course, Southern, -4 in the SWAC. He is laying it with them, while Ralph says Oregon laying 3.5 tonight, but look to fade them once they get past UCLA here. And, of course, the Gold Sheet play we just told you is on the under between Penn State and Indiana. You guys outstanding, as always. And Ralph has got something to add now. Yes, Ralph.
You yelled at Brian yesterday, and I apologize if you're going to yell to me today, but I went to the database because of the question from the customer about the high total. Conference tournament games since 2015. If you blindly played the under on every total of 151 or higher, you have gone 175 and 115. That is 60.3% to the under. That's every conference tournament game with totals of 151 or higher since 2015.
Wow. Well, there you go, guys. That tells you a lot right there. And that's why we're starting to see a lot of under money here in some of these higher total games today. All right, that'll do it there. These guys told you $5 customer appreciation day. What are you waiting for? Partner up with Ralph Michael, Steve Merrill, Brian Power. $5 at WagerTalk.com. Just visit these guys on their page and then make plans to come back again. Another edition of the College Basketball Tip-Off Show live tomorrow here, same time, 2 o'clock Eastern time. We'll take a look at all the rest of the games on the slate tomorrow. It is do or die. It is madness. That's why they call it madness here, and we've got you covered. So on behalf of these guys, we appreciate the time, but we're not done yet. Why don't you go ahead and click on that video on your screen right now. Take a look at some of the other big games coming up with the previews and best bets. You have access to them. We appreciate the time. Best of luck with your plays today. We'll see you again tomorrow.